What's up, friends? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Practice number 9 is officially done and over with on Monday, and I wanted to get to you guys right away, get this episode up as soon as possible to give you my key takeaways from Monday's practice. So let's start right away. First and foremost, some huge news to kick off the day. Rashan Gary off the PUP list, officially practicing once again. A massive turnaround for Gary to be able to come back from the ACL injury and already be practicing in some capacity. Now, Green Bay is going to take it incredibly slow with Gary. He was out on the practice field on Monday with helmet, pads, etc., doing individual drills. He's not going to do team drills. He's going to work off to the side for the time being. You're not going to see him in the preseason game this week or anything like that. He's not going to be doing team activities against the Bengals, but this is a huge step in the right direction for both Rashan and the Packers. Rashan is such an integral part of this Packers defense and what he can bring to the team, not only as a pass rusher, but as a run defender, and getting him back at practice in any capacity at this point is a huge win. Now, what this means right now doesn't necessarily for certain mean that he's going to be ready for week 1 and ready to play. It does mean that they no longer can put him on the PUP list to start the season. So once you take a player off the PUP list, you cannot put them back on. They could, however, keep him on the initial 53-man roster, and if he wasn't ready to go right away, they could place him on injured reserve to start the season and then bring him back after a few weeks if they thought he still needed a little bit more time. But more likely than not, what they will probably do is keep him on the 53-man roster and then evaluate him week by week and probably, hopefully, maybe be ready for week 1. And again, I don't want to put any expectations out there for Rashan. Just the fact that he's practicing already is a great sign, but this is beyond a step in the right direction and hopefully an indicator that Rashan's going to be able to go sooner rather than later once the season starts, and certainly would not rule out week 1 as a potential return date. Now, when he does return, the big question at that point is going to be what type of role does he play? And I've said all along, you could see a world in which Rashan starts off as a pass rush specialist only, maybe third downs in some obvious pass rush situations. Maybe they just put him on a 25 or 30, play snap count and just use him sparingly. And once he hits that, they stop and he's out of the game at that point. We'll see how they use him, but this is a huge sign. It's just great to see him back at practice, and we'll keep an eye on when he starts doing team activities and if and when that happens. Obviously, we'll report it right here on the Pack a Day podcast as well. Meanwhile, Rashan Gary was not the only player back at practice. Grant Dubose also back practicing, which was nice to see. Dubose has competition for that, probably number 6 roster spot, right? You've got 5 guys that are making the roster, in my opinion, in Samori Toure, in Dontavian Wicks, and then your top 3 in Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. And then that number 6 spot likely going to be between Bo Melton, Malik Heath, and Grant Dubose. Now, we didn't get to see a ton out of Grant Dubose at practice. We got to see him in individual drills a little bit. He looks good. I mean, he had a nice leaping catch in the back of the end zone in an individual drill, which doesn't amount to anything because there's nobody covering on the play and it's just a lollipop up. But he looks the part, but he's going to have to make up for lost time. He was not in OTAs, mini camps, rookie mini camps, etc. And this is his first training camp practice. So a lot of catching up to do for Dubose. Malik Heath and Bo Melton have both had their moments, but that's going to be a very interesting number 6 wide receiver spot to keep an eye on from here on out. And huge for Dubose that he was able to get back before the start of preseason so that, Green Bay can get a full evaluation of him moving forward. Meanwhile, also not the only 2 players back. So Gary and Dubose made probably the most news because they haven't practiced at all yet. But David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins both back. Jenkins just had an illness and was out at family night, but he's back 100%, or at least seemingly 100%. So that's great. And then Bakhtiari back out there in team drills, not just doing individuals. So out there in team as well, which is a great sign for him. And that just goes to say, I know I posted yesterday of hey, there's at least some level of concern about Bakhtiari, but I wouldn't be panicked yet. And some people are in the comments, there's people on both ends of the spectrum. I got how can you not be panicked about Bakhtiari? Of course it's time to panic. And others were why does this keep being a thing? And I get both sides of it. I understand if you're, not sure where to be at with Bakhtiari because he hasn't practice and he's had these issues, and I can understand if you're sick of it and just knowing hey, Green Bay's been transparent about it. He's not going to practice some days and they're just saving him up for the season. I get that too. And I think this was, just a great sign overall that he was able to practice after missing some time last week, and he's back practicing on Monday, and hopefully he's able to go moving forward. But I don't care about him practicing at all in any capacity. Like, if Green Bay's transparent about everything, it's just like, hey, we're not going to practice this guy very much, and he's going to be ready for the regular. David Bakhtiari could play today, week 1, like sit out from today basically until week 1. He'll be totally fine, ready to go. Now, conditioning will be the one thing that you want to get him out there for as many snaps as possible. So, if he is out there week 1, all of a sudden he hits, snap 50, 60, that he's not, tired, but he's in great shape. He looks phenomenal, had another really great practice. Anytime he's been out there, he's looked great. So great to see him back nonetheless. And again, Elgton Jenkins also back. Meanwhile, new injuries. Innis Gaines was out with a quad injury. Lou Nichols isn't a new injury, but we finally learned what it was. A shoulder issue for Lou Nichols. So he was out at family night as well, but he remained out at practice. And then Jake Hansen, Eric Stokes, and Josiah DeGuara also remained out from practice. So overall, Rashawn Gary, Grant Dubose, David Bakhtiari, and Elgton Jenkins all back practicing. Innis Gaines new to the injured list. And then Lou Nichols, Jake Hansen, Eric Stokes, and Josiah DeGuara remain injured. But still, only 5 guys on that list overall, which is a pretty great thing to see at this point of the offseason. All right, meanwhile, some just notes before we get into some actual practice play. The offensive line rotation continues. It started the day with Josh Myers at center, Zach Tom at right tackle. We'll see how that transpires moving forward. But then we saw Yash Nyman go in at right tackle for Zach Tom, and Zach Tom come out. Then Yash stayed at right tackle, Zach Tom went in at center, and Josh Myers went out, and we saw a rotation throughout the course of the day. So that battle between Zach Tom, Yash Nyman, and Josh Myers, those 3 have 2 spots, center and right tackle, and I think that rotation is going to continue, and I think that battle is going to continue up until really probably the start of the regular season, even probably past that, where if a player does not perform well, I think the hit, they could take somebody out quick. The hook could be quick, and they could ultimately go in a different direction very fast. So, meanwhile, Jair Alexander did not practice in team drills, and before you get all panicked, they do this a lot of time on preseason weeks where they get some of their younger players a little bit more time in the week because they know that they're going to be playing a ton in the game. And like, this is probably your first indication that Jair is not going to practice on, or not going to play in the preseason game. Not going to say that 1,000,000% for sure, but let's just say there's no reason for Jair to play in the preseason game, and I would be all for that. But the big thing here was that it was Carrington Valentine that got the start for Jair. Valentine and Douglas on the outside with Nixon in the slot. So Valentine seems to be ahead right now for that number 4 corner position. Now, when Stokes comes back, that'll bump him back a spot, but that is a very, very good sign for Carrington Valentine and his ability to make the roster. Quite frankly, I don't know who else it would have been. Shamar has not had a great camp. Keandre Thomas hasn't had a great camp. Innis Gaines is out with an injury, and quite frankly, he hasn't had a great camp either. Corey Ballantyne hasn't had a great camp. Like, there's just not a lot of corners that are playing super well at the moment, and Carrington Valentine has played well, so that makes a ton of sense that he's the starter. Lucas Van Ness was the starter at edge, and then Jonathan Owens was the starter at safety alongside Darnell Savage. Everything else was pretty much status quo, but Valentine in for Jair, Van Ness across from Preston, and then Jonathan Owens across from Darnell Savage at safety. Of course, everyone always wants to know, what did Jordan Love look like at practice? So let's break that down. 13 plays. He ended 6 for 11 on the day overall, including 4 for 4 to end practice. But this is why we do not box score scout and just look at the numbers. We actually have to go through and evaluate how he played. So 13 plays that I'll be talking through today. His first play of practice looks right, tries to hit a quick throw. I think it was to Romeo Doubs, whether it was a quick slant or in-breaking route, not sure. Darnell Savage jumps the route and pick 6 the other way. Now, I've been talking to you guys every day, basically, in every practice that I've covered, and saying that Jordan's done a tremendous job not throwing interceptable passes and keeping the ball out of harm's way. This was not one of those. And I didn't get a great look at the play, just being totally transparent. I talked to Aaron Nagler, Paul Brettel after the play to kind of get their take on it. Both of them basically said the exact same thing, where it definitely was telegraphed by Jordan a little bit, but also to give Darnell Savage a lot of credit on the play for reading it, jumping it, trusting it, and making that play and taking it to the house. So not the way that you ideally want to start practice for Jordan Love with a pick 6, but sometimes it's going to happen, and sometimes the defense is going to make a play. Tip of the cap to Darnell Savage, and I'm sure Jordan's going to learn from that. But at that point, that was only Jordan's second real, turnover-worthy play in 9 practices now. So not something to be super concerned about because he's taking great care of the ball, but that was one that he certainly would like to have back. And then always the big question, right, is going to be, well, how does he respond to that? Like, what's the rest of his day going to look like? And what's the next throw going to look like? Next throw, deep down the field, Romeo Doubs, about 50 yards down the field, throws it perfectly right in the hands of Romeo Doubs. Now, Keyshawn Nixon, pretty decent coverage on the play, certainly contested it. I don't think he got a hand on it. And if I were evaluating it and grading it in real time, I would have said it was a drop by Romeo Doubs, which should have been a 50-yard touchdown. And I thought it was a gorgeous ball by Jordan Love. And this is, we're going to talk about another one in just a minute, but this is why you don't necessarily just scout the box score when you're talking about Jordan Love's performance. Should have had probably a 50-yard touchdown right there in a second play. And instead, it's an incomplete pass. It shows up as an 0 for 1 in the box score, right? So 6 for 11, if we're counting this one, should have been 7 for 11 with 50 more yards and another touchdown on the day. Unfortunately, it was dropped by Romeo Doubs. And this is when I talk about the youth and the inconsistency and the volatility of this Packers offense with all the youth surrounding it. You're going to have sometimes where it's Jordan Love's fault, where he throws a pick six or an interception on the first play. And then on the next play, you might have Jordan Love throw an absolute dime and Romeo Doubs drops it in the end zone for a touchdown. And again, great contest and great play by Keyshawn Nixon as well, but that's one that Romeo has to come down with. I don't think Jordan could have handed it off to him any better. So those are the type of plays that a young offense is going to go through probably through the course of this season. Number 3, they were in red zone drills now, and you had an incomplete pass to Christian Watson in the red zone. Nowhere to go on the play. Love looked around. The pocket was starting to collapse. It was basically a throwaway. He threw in Christian Watson's direction, but he threw it basically where nobody was going to get to it. I would consider that a throwaway, but Christian Watson in the vicinity and just nowhere to go on the play. The fourth play, very similar. There was some pressure on the play. I think they brought an extra blitzer. He had Tyler Davis one-on-one with Darnell Savage in the corner of the end zone. Kind of threw a jump ball up, overthrew it a little bit, put it in a spot where it was either going to be Davis or no one, but that play also incomplete. So now you're 0 for 4 with an interception to start the day, right? Pick six to Savage, incomplete on the deep ball, the 50-yarder, which was perfectly thrown but dropped. Incomplete to Watson, incomplete to Tyler Davis. So 0 for 4. You then get Tyler Davis, you get Goodson coming wide open in the flat. And Jordan Love, nice job going through his progressions, seeing Goodson in the flat, hitting him. Goodson takes it in for a touchdown. You then had a scramble play by Jordan Love. Quay Walker was all over that. I don't know if he was spying or if he was in zone, but he was all over it. Jordan Love wasn't really going anywhere on that play. You then had Jayden Reed in the backfield, which you love to see. Isaiah McDuffie ended up getting matched up on him. Reed just goes right out in the flat, runs as fast as he can. Love hits him in stride. Isaiah McDuffie had no chance on the play. Easy money, touchdown, Jordan Love to Jayden Reed. You then had a designed rollout in the red zone to the right side. He tries to get a pass to Samori Toure, but the defense was all over everything. Not much Jordan could have done differently on that play. Kenny Clark, then in another team activity, I think this was sort of red zone again. Beautiful coverage on the back end. Jordan had nowhere to go with it. Kenny Clark ends up with a covered sack. You then had a complete pass to Romeo Doubs. Quick out. Rasul was all over it. It was probably like a 4-yard completion that Rasul fought and did everything for to try to break up. But Doubs got it inbounds, 2 feet down, and all of that for about 4 yards. Not a touchdown, but just, 4-yard pickup in the red zone. You then had another play where this is why we don't box score scout. So Jordan's trying to hit Jayden Reed in the back corner of the end zone. And Carrington Valentine's a player that's in coverage on the play. And he throws the ball. And Carrington Valentine's got a beat on it. He's turned around. He makes the jump, goes right into Carrington Valentine's hands, and then it goes right through Carrington Valentine's hands. And in the process, goes right to Jayden Reed, and Jayden Reed ends up with a touchdown in the back of the end zone, gets 2 feet down. Great play by Jayden Reed to keep concentration, to not be affected by the tip ball by Carrington Valentine, to then recognize that, I can still catch this, and then with the wherewithal, after all of that, to still get his 2 feet down in the back of the end zone and get the touchdown. Great play by Jayden Reed, but this should have been an interception. This is Jordan's third interceptable pass that he's thrown. Again, the first one was to Quay about a week and a half ago, where Quay dropped into his zone. He threw it right to him. Then you had the second one, which was a pick six to Savage earlier in the practice. And then this was the third, what should have been a pick for Carrington Valentine. And instead it ended up being a touchdown for Jayden Reed. Now, tough for Valentine, right? He gets the start. He gets, gets to play with the ones, plays against Jordan Love in the ones for the vast majority of the day. Red zone, you've played the play perfectly. Jordan Love throws a ball that you have the opportunity to pick. You're right there. You make the leaping grab, or you're ready to make the leaping interception, and the ball goes right through your hands. And not just does it go right through your hands, it goes right through your hands and right into the hands of Jayden Reed for a touchdown. Should have been a pick, ends up being a touchdown. You have a poor throw by Jordan on the play. Should not have thrown it there. You had a dropped interception by Carrington Valentine, who did a great job of being in that position and being ready for the pick, but then ends up with a drop. And then you've got Jayden Reed making a phenomenal play to catch it in the back of the end zone. So bit of a whirlwind play there. You then have a play where Jordan gets the defense to sort of tip their hand. He does a hard count and they show blitz. He does a great job. He motions Patrick Taylor into the right side, making sure that everything's protected. And then he knows he's going to go sort of fake handoff and quick slant on the right side and basically kind of have it be like a run solution type play. But he read blitz perfect. He knew Dobbs was going to come open, and he bulleted one in. It was good coverage by Tavarius Moore on the play, but not good enough. And it's a touchdown from Jordan Love to Romeo Dobbs. Great play on that specific one, just reading the defense and knowing where to go with the ball. And then on the very final play for Jordan Love, Luke Musgrave comes open in the, kind of on a crossing route. Quay Walker was the closest in coverage, but Musgrave had plenty of separation. Love finds him in the end zone for a touchdown. So it ends 4 for 4 with touchdown to Reed. It was a completion to Dobbs quick, a touchdown to Reed, touchdown to Dobbs, touchdown to Musgrave. But the touchdown to Reed should have been an interception, right? So 6 of 11 on the day, ending 4 for 4. Had the touchdown to Dobbs that was dropped that should have gotten credit for. Had the interception to Valentine that should have been a pick that ended up being a touchdown. So again, that's why we have to evaluate everything individually and see the actual play on the field. And we can't just look at the numbers, the yardage, the touchdowns, the interceptions, because there was an incomplete, should have been a touchdown that should have been an interception. And that changes the numbers quite drastically, right? So ultimately 6 of 11 and ended 4 for 4 on the day with 3 consecutive touchdowns. However you want to read into that, I'll let you read into that. I did think that this was the first day where, again, Jordan had a few plays thrown into coverage that I'm sure he'd like to have back, but a couple really nice throws as well. And just one of those up and down days that we've sort of come to see from Jordan now through the first 2 weeks and now the first day of week 3. And I think this practice against the Bengals on Wednesday is going to be really huge for him. All right, Anders Carlson, other notes really quick here. Anders Carlson, 5 for 6 on the day, hit the upright on a 45-yarder for his only miss. Otherwise, he hit from 50, 50, and 51, all into the wind. So a pretty nice day overall for Anders. The only thing was the one that hit the goalpost. Otherwise, perfect day, 5 for 6. And again, pretty windy conditions and some long field goals. The play of the day was the Darnell Savage pick 6. My players of the day, Darnell Savage, Rasul Douglas, and David Bakhtiari, with honorable mentions to Tyler Goodson and Jayden Reed as well. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode breaking down the entirety of practice. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.